Hello, I'm Mario Anderson, and we thank you for joining us today on In Focus Kentucky, where we take a look at issues that matter to you. Each week, we talk directly to the lawmakers and people in the community who help shape policy and law that affects you. On today's episode, we are focusing on a pilot program at the University of Kentucky that is tackling the issue of non-emergency calls bombarding the 911 emergency system in the city of Lexington. And according to the Lexington Fire Department, in 2017, paramedics with their department responded to 48,238 medical calls, but only 266 people accounted for 8.9% of those calls. Joining me to talk more about these numbers and the cause of it is Captain Seth Lockhart and Officer Alejandro Zagul. Thank you both for joining us here on In Focus Kentucky.
Well, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We'll start with you, Seth. Let's talk about these medical calls. 48,000 calls. That sounds pretty high, but is that a high number average? Where are we with that?
It is. So nationally, we try to keep our ambulances running about 3,000 ambulance calls a year rather. And when you look at the fact that Lexington has 12 ambulances, that's running about 4,000 per truck per ambulance. So it is kind of on the higher number. And what we looked at was the fact that in 2013, we'd made 33,500 ambulance runs, and that number jumped 44% between 2013 and 2017. So when we start looking at the numbers and drilling down, we realized that, as you said, 266 people accounted for about 4,200 of those runs. It's a large percentage for a very small number of individuals.
And I know the city of Lexington in March of this year launched the community paramedicine program, but also the fire department is partnering with the police department on this particular topic. So Officer Zagul, why was it important to kind of partner together on this particular subject?
Well, we were seeing that a lot of our calls were overlapping. We were dealing with the same people. The same people were falling through the cracks in the system. We were trying to address it from different ends of the spectrum. They're fantastic in the fire department dealing with anything medical, and the police department, one of the things that we specialize in is the mental health aspect of it, having to deal with adult protective services, guardianship, and entities like that. Kind of brought me more into the scope. So along with the fire department and some of the social work students, we've been able to kind of deal with some of the problems that we were seeing in a very different way, and kind of figure out what the root cause of the issue was and how to address it.
Now, Seth, has abuse of the ambulance services for non-emergency, has this been a long-standing problem, or what's the root of that from you?
It really is, and the biggest issue is trying to utilize an ambulance in the more appropriate manner. You know, we're there for emergencies, and it's hard to define what an emergency is. What you may categorize as an emergency, I may think run-of-the-mill. And so, when somebody calls 911, we're obligated to respond, and that's what we do. And we don't have the ability to say, this isn't something that we should be transporting. We respond, and if you say, I want to go to the hospital, we take you to the hospital.
Now, how common is it for callers to actually refuse wanting to go to the hospital after they may have received medication or something like that from the EMTs?
There's certain medical runs that we will do, and that happens quite frequently. When you look at patients that are diabetics, they may have taken a little too much of their insulin or not eaten enough after taking insulin, and their blood sugar will get extremely low. And we do respond to a number of those through the course of the year. We can administer what's called dextrose. It's sugar that we can administer, through the vein, IV. And once we usually give that medicine, they wake up and usually don't need to be seen at a hospital. So we do deal with those quite a few times a year.
And how involved are you all with the city's social service and healthcare providers? Is that something that you are in lots of contact with on a weekly basis?
Yes.
Even daily basis. We work very closely with the Office of Homelessness Prevention. Polly Ruddick is the director there, and we're constantly in contact with her. We are working with the Office of Social Services, which is at Commissioner Ford's office, and working with some of the issues to them as well.
And Officer, I know that you were actually on the bike patrol unit previously, and you're on the kind of the front lines. So kind of how has your experience with that been able to work with this particular program and add another set of eyes to the issue?
And having dealt with the downtown population, the large chunk of the population that we were getting calls on consistently was a homeless population down there. Looking at the numbers and seeing who had been arrested most in the last 12 months or so, a large portion of that population was covered in there. I built pretty good relationships with those individuals. I'd been out with them previously and tried to see what it was that we could do for them. Unfortunately, kind of limited on resources and which way we could direct them at that point. When I was on the bike unit, I started to address the 2 individuals when I was down there that I thought were worst off, and that's kind of how I ended up finding out that I was overlapping with the fire department at that point, or trying to get them the same resources, trying to get them help through the same agencies. Having worked down there was beneficial in the fact that I've built these relationships with these individuals. So when I go out there and talk to them about stuff and offering them help, they seem to be a little bit more receptive.
Well, we really appreciate both of you all joining us today to talk about this particular issue that is impacting Lexington, but also some of the solutions you're hoping to accomplish moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we'll discuss how the University of Kentucky College of Social Work Department is working to create solutions to address the high volume of 911 non-emergency calls.
So that would be a great example of a time when maybe one of our folks might intervene from the community paramedicine team. They might go out, kind of talk with the individual about maybe what all their needs could be beyond just the light bulb getting changed, but maybe some other things they're struggling with around their house. And at that point, the students can kind of make a plan with the individual and think about what services they might be able to link them in with.
But what's the latest weather forecast in your area? You'll find out in your Weather on the Ones coming up after this break.